Most people lose long before the first move. They reveal their plans, their fears, their emotions, and by the time they realize it, they've already been defeated without a single blow landing. This is not a world ruled by fairness. It's a world ruled by perception, timing, and control. The loudest man rarely holds real power. The man who dominates doesn't need to shout. He shapes the room before anyone even knows a game has begun. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, that victory doesn't belong to the strongest or the smartest. It belongs to the man who controls how others see, think, and move. But dominance isn't just about manipulation. In the Stoic sense, it's about mastering yourself so deeply, so quietly, that you move others without ever raising your voice. You turn noise into silence. You turn reaction into precision. You stop being a player on the board and become the one who designed the board in the first place. If you've ever wondered why some men command respect without saying a word, while others scream and still go unheard, it's not luck, it's discipline. Ruthless, strategic restraint. Understanding that real influence isn't declared, it's engineered patiently, coldly, relentlessly. You're not here to be louder. You're here to move sharper. You're not here to demand authority. You're here to exude it naturally. You're not here to fight harder. You're here to win smarter. And the principles you're about to discover, the hidden tactics beneath real dominance, are not theory. They are the difference between being respected before you act and being dismissed after you speak. They are the reason the silent man is more feared than the raging one, the quiet strategist more effective than the noisy warrior. Because at the highest levels of power, brute force is amateur. Perception is the battlefield. Psychology is the weapon. Timing is the blade. Before we dive in, if you're ready to stop reacting and start ruling your own space, like this video, subscribe to Victory Stoic and drop a comment below with the battle cry, "Dominate with calm," or share your story, a moment you realize that real power comes not from force, but from stillness and precision. What you'll hear next isn't for the reckless. It's for the man who understands that true strength moves silently, strikes precisely, and leaves no loose ends. Let's begin. Number 1, silence with purpose. Never let them read you. The loudest man in the room is often the weakest. He needs noise to fill the gaps of his authority, chatter to cover his insecurities, declarations to mask the fact that he doesn't really control the board. He's trying to convince himself that he does. The man who moves with true power moves differently. He doesn't announce. He doesn't explain. He doesn't react. He waits. He observes. He lets others trip over their own assumptions while he stands silent, unreadable, inevitable. You have been taught that to lead, you must speak. That to be respected, you must declare your intentions, make yourself understood, open your mind to public inspection. This is a lie. In the real world, the brutal, quiet world of dominance and survival, visibility is vulnerability. The more you say, the more you reveal. The more you reveal, the more they prepare. And the more they prepare, the harder it becomes for you to win. Jason, 39 from Chicago, used to believe in transparency. In his corporate job, he always laid his ideas on the table, always showed enthusiasm for upcoming promotions, always voiced his strategies in meetings. He thought being open built trust. It didn't. It built targets. His co-workers learned how to undercut him, predict him, position themselves between him and every opportunity. The less he guarded, the more they maneuvered. His ambition became their blueprint. By the time he realized it, he was working harder, but achieving less, wondering how he kept losing to men who said half as much and seemed to know twice as much. Modern psychology confirms this dynamic. Research shows that people tend to trust confident mystery more than over-explained competence. In other words, the less you reveal, the more authority you command. Dr. Amy Cuddy's work on power dynamics reveals that presence, not chatter, is what influences perception. People project strength onto the silent. They project chaos onto the noisy. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He wrote, "It is not necessary to explain oneself to those who have already decided not to understand. Silence is not cowardice, it is command." It forces others to fill in the blanks with their fears, their projections, their insecurities. Your silence becomes their mirror, and what they see there unnerves them more than anything you could say. But silence must be strategic, not passive. There's a difference between being withdrawn and being impenetrable. The Stoic does not stay silent because he is shy. He stays silent because he owns his reality so completely that he owes no explanation. As Marcus Aurelius taught, to live a good life, we have the potential for it, if we learn to be indifferent to what makes no difference. Your reputation, your plans, your ambitions, they are not public property, they are weapons. And weapons must be concealed until the strike is inevitable. This isn't just about not speaking, it's about how you speak, when you speak, and why you speak. Speak only when the words create movement, not validation, not clarification, movement. Every word you drop must land like a stone in a still pond, measured, deliberate, undeniable. Here's how to reclaim your silent power immediately. First, stop narrating your moves. You don't owe explanations for every choice you make. From tonight forward, when someone asks, "What are you planning next?" learn to smile, nod, and say, "You'll see." No timelines, no forecasts, no blueprints. Second, observe more than you speak. Enter a conversation with the intent to listen, not to broadcast. When you stay quiet, people reveal themselves. Their fears, their ambitions, their weak spots, all of it spills out when there's silence to fill. Third, delay your reactions. When someone insults you, challenges you, tests you, pause. Breathe. Let the silence become the most unsettling response they've ever encountered. You are not responsible for fixing their discomfort. Fourth, guard your plans like a fortress. Share only what is necessary, and even then, share it selectively. Let your actions be your announcements. Remember this: silence is not the absence of strategy. It is the strategy. You become powerful not by showing strength, but by letting them wonder how deep it goes. You become a presence, not a noise. And presence reshapes rooms without lifting a finger. Next time you walk into a meeting, a negotiation, a confrontation, don't walk in full of ideas and explanations. Walk in with stillness. Let your silence press against the walls. Let it fill the space until they break it first. Let them move while you measure. Because in the end, it's not the loudest man who wins. It's the one who speaks so little, so carefully, that when he does finally speak, the entire room stops breathing to hear it. Master silence. Master yourself. And when you master yourself, there is nothing left for them to control. Number 2, never argue. Apply pressure through presence. Arguments are for men who have already surrendered the high ground. The moment you engage in shouting, explaining, or defending, you have already admitted that your position needs saving, that it is somehow under attack. True power does not negotiate for respect. True power makes its presence felt before a single word is needed. Imagine a mountain standing against a raging storm. The mountain does not argue with the wind. It does not sway. It does not shout back. It simply stands. And in standing, it wins. You are that mountain, or you are the storm, wasting itself against stone. Eric, 45 from Dallas, learned this lesson the hard way. A rising manager in a competitive tech firm, Eric believed that every challenge deserved a rebuttal. When clients criticized, he defended. When coworkers doubted, he over-explained. When executives questioned, he argued passionately. He thought passion was leadership. It wasn't. It was noise. It was desperation disguised as engagement. Over time, he noticed something terrifying. The more he explained, the less people listened. The more he fought to be right, the more invisible he became. Meanwhile, the executives who said less, who allowed silence to stretch like taut wire across the room, seemed to pull the gravity of the room around them. One day, during a critical project meeting, a senior partner attacked Eric's strategy in front of the team. Everyone expected Eric to launch into his usual self-defense. But he didn't. He stood. He waited 2 full seconds. He held the partner's gaze without blinking. And then, calm and slow, he said, "I understand your concern. Let's see how the results speak." He said no more. He sat back. He watched the entire room shift. The partner, deprived of battle, faltered. The conversation moved on, and Eric, for the first time, commanded not attention, but authority. The Stoics knew this power intimately. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." And what braver act exists than refusing to defend your worth to people who question it? Psychologically, silence in confrontation triggers deep discomfort. Studies show that humans are wired to seek resolution when faced with silence in a social exchange. When you argue, you give your opponent a path to regain footing. When you remain silent, you force them to confront their own words, their own uncertainty. But silence alone isn't enough. It must be paired with presence, the kind of presence that demands respect without demanding anything. Here's how. First, when challenged, pause. 2 seconds. Breathe. Do not rush to fill the air. Let them stew in their own aggression. Second, maintain eye contact. Not with anger, with calm, heavy stillness. Let them see that their words have found no purchase. Third, respond minimally. A short, unshakable sentence, a refusal to overengage. Noted. I disagree. We'll see. Then stop. Fourth, control your body language. Sit back, relax your shoulders, show through your stillness that you are unmoved. This behavior weaponizes an ancient truth. Presence outweighs persuasion. Think of a courtroom. The most feared lawyer isn't the one shouting objections. It's the one who listens, who measures every word, who forces the room to hang on every slight tilt of their head, every pause, every glance. That is the energy you must cultivate. Not aggression, not submission, stillness, presence. Because the man who does not flinch forces everyone else to question their own footing. The man who doesn't argue forces others to wrestle with their own doubts. And the man who remains unshaken writes the ending to every conflict without raising his voice. Here's a daily practice. At your next disagreement, professional, personal, or random, commit to a 2-second pause before you say anything. Look them in the eye. Let the silence thicken. Watch how the dynamic shifts. Watch how much weaker their argument feels without your immediate resistance to prop it up. Write this somewhere you will see it. Presence is the sharpest blade. You don't win respect by drowning out the room. You win it by becoming the one thing they cannot ignore, even when you say nothing at all. Power does not come from louder words. Power comes from deeper stillness. Be the man who doesn't argue because he doesn't need to. Be the mountain. Let the storms exhaust themselves. You remain unmoved, unbeaten, unforgettable. Number 3, use your shadow to intimidate without threatening. The most powerful weapons are never drawn. The most devastating threats are never spoken. True dominance is not built on displays of force. It is built on the chilling weight of potential, on the silent question you plant in the minds of others. What would happen if he decided to act? A wise man never needs to roar to be feared. He lets his mere existence unsettle the weak. He casts a shadow so long, so dense, that even without movement, he governs the room. When you openly threaten, you invite resistance. You show your hand. You reveal the shape of your force, and men prepare for it. But when you hold your power back, when you let it linger, unmeasured, unpredictable, you force everyone around you to build monsters in their own minds. You don't need to prove anything. Their imaginations will outmatch any speech you could deliver. Matt, 42, from Miami, mastered this art after a brutal lesson. In his early years as an entrepreneur, he believed in being aggressive, making big statements, issuing ultimatums to competitors and employees alike. At first, it seemed to work, until it didn't. Challenged publicly, exposed by rivals who had prepared for the storm he warned them about, Matt lost not just battles, but reputation. It wasn't until he learned to move differently, to move with silence, that his influence truly took hold. No more declarations, no more warnings, only a calm, watchful presence that said, I can destroy you, but I choose not to. That choice, left unspoken, spoke louder than any threat ever could. There is a primal terror in the unknown. Psychology shows that the human brain fills gaps in information with its own fears. Dr. Daniel Kahneman's work on cognitive biases confirms that uncertainty amplifies fear. When a man is certain of the threat, he can prepare. When he is uncertain, he weakens from within. Doubt eats faster than bullets. Machiavelli himself warned, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But the Stoic corrects this further. It is better to be respected through controlled fear, not out of cruelty, but out of disciplined silence. Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. And the man who controls his power, who restrains his hand, who lets the shadow of his capability loom over others without exploiting it, owns not just his strength, but their imagination. Here's the art of using your shadow. First, never state what you are capable of. Let them wonder. Speak of results, not threats. If your strength is visible, let it be visible through calm action, not commentary. Second, let your reputation work for you. Quiet victories, silent competence, the way you remain composed under pressure, these build the myth. They build the shadow. Resist the urge to explain your limits or your breaking point. The less they know, the more they fear. Third, when challenged, refuse to escalate. Look them in the eye. Say little. Show no anger, no defensiveness. Your calm is a riddle they will never solve. Fourth, act decisively only when necessary. And when you act so cleanly, so ruthlessly efficient, that no one forgets the cost of awakening your shadow. Visualize it like this. You are a fortress with no banners, no war cries, no visible guards. But the walls are thick, the gates unseen, the defenses endless. No one dares storm a fortress they cannot map. Here's your practical tip. Over the next week, deliberately withhold your strengths in conversation. When someone asks about your skills, your resources, your plans, downplay them. Smile lightly. Say, I manage. Refuse to brag. Refuse to posture. Watch how curiosity grows. Watch how respect deepens, not through what you say, but through what they imagine. Write this reminder where you can see it. The fear of what I could do is greater than anything I must say. A man who flashes his sword too early invites defense. A man who lets the weight of the unseen hang in the air wins without unsheathing anything. Let your reputation outpace your revelation. Let your potential speak louder than your promises. Let your enemies exhaust themselves preparing for a war you never declared. Because in the end, real power doesn't come from force. It comes from the shadows you cast. Shadows born not from darkness, but from such overwhelming silent strength that the world trembles without a sound. Number 4. Quietly undermine their support system. The strongest fortress doesn't fall because its walls are breached. It falls because the ground beneath it crumbles. Direct attacks create heroes. Quiet erosion creates ruins. The man who truly understands strategy does not charge headfirst at the enemy's gate. He rots the foundation beneath their feet until the proud castle collapses in silence. You don't break powerful people by attacking them. You break them by isolating them. You don't need to destroy their image. You destroy the web that holds them up. The alliances, the unspoken loyalties, the invisible hands that keep them afloat. Kevin, 44, from Denver, witnessed this firsthand. As a mid-level executive, he saw a rival climb rapidly, propped up not by superior talent, but by a loyal circle whispering his praises, shielding his flaws. Kevin realized if he attacked directly, he'd only trigger loyalty, defend the tribe, protect the leader. Instead, he quietly built rapport with key allies. He offered better opportunities, subtle support, silent exits. One by one, the rival's defenders drifted away, seemingly by their own choice. By the time confrontation came, there was no army left to rally. The rival stood alone, a loud voice in an empty room. This is the art of indirect dominance. A lesson Machiavellian and the Stoics both understood. Real destruction happens invisibly. Seneca wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." If you force the battle into open tomorrow, you empower your opponent. If you dissolve his strength today, he collapses before he can even march. Modern organizational psychology reinforces this. Power is relational. Dr. Jeffrey Pfeffer's research at Stanford shows that individuals rarely maintain influence without networks of support. Remove the network, and the individual becomes irrelevant, regardless of their personal talents. How do you practice this quietly lethal strategy? First, identify the real sources of your opponent's strength. It's rarely their own skill. It's often hidden. A mentor, a supportive team, a sponsor. Map the structure invisibly supporting them. Second, do not attack. Engage neutrally. Build private bridges. Give alternatives that pull support away naturally, not through conflict, but through better offers, more promising futures, or simply more respect. People don't need to be pushed. Most will drift where gravity is lower. Third, be patient. Erosion takes time. You are not planting dynamite. You are planting doubt, opportunity, dissatisfaction. Let it grow. Fourth, remain publicly uninvolved. Let the narrative be that their system crumbled under its own weight. Your hand should be invisible. The man who is seen pulling down the statue is less feared than the man whose whisper made the crowd do it for him. Here's the visual. Think of a giant oak tree. To kill it, you don't swing an axe at its trunk where everyone can see. You infect the roots. The tree stands proudly for a time. Then it sickens, weakens, and one day in a seemingly random storm, it falls. No drama, no banners, just gravity doing the final work. Daily application. In your personal or professional life, Notice where influence clusters. Don't challenge it head-on. Ask yourself, who props up the loudest voice? Build quiet relationships with those people. Strengthen your ties, not through promises of loyalty, but through mutual benefit and dignity. The structure will weaken itself in time. Write this where you can see it. Crush not the warrior, starve the village that feeds him. Victory through silence. Victory through subtraction. You don't have to fight harder. You have to make sure your enemy has no one left willing to fight for them. In the end, the loudest men don't lose because they were shouted down. They lose because one day they turn to rally their forces and realize the room is empty, and by then, no battle is needed. Only the quiet satisfaction of knowing you won, not by blood, not by force, but by erasing their foundation while they were too busy guarding their throne. Number 5. Don't fight emotions. Use them against others. The man who loses his temper first loses everything. His strategy, his position, his respect. When you react emotionally, you don't just reveal your feelings, you reveal your weaknesses, your fears, and most critically, your next move. In the arena of dominance, emotional eruption is like handing your enemy a map straight to your vulnerabilities. Control your own emotions, but more importantly, learn to harvest the chaos of others. People crave emotional validation. They want to be heard, understood, agreed with. When they don't get it, their frustration builds until they betray themselves. Saying things they shouldn't, making promises they can't keep, revealing plans they meant to hide. You don't have to confront them directly. You just need to stay still long enough for their emotional storms to drown their own cause. Rebecca, 35, from Seattle, used to be the fiercest debater in her corporate law firm. Sharp, quick, brutal. Every disagreement turned into a battle of raised voices and sharper insults. Until she met Jonathan, 40, a Stoic practitioner disguised as a quiet consultant. In negotiations, when Rebecca would raise her voice, Jonathan would grow calmer. When she snapped, he paused. When she insulted, he responded with dispassionate observation. The more emotional she got, the more unstable she seemed, not him. Clients began siding with Jonathan, seeing in his restraint the weight of credibility. She lost, not because her arguments were weaker, but because her emotions made them look desperate. This is the invisible trap emotional players fall into. Anger feels powerful, rage feels righteous, but every emotional outburst is an admission, I have lost control of myself. The Stoics warned us centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." True control isn't bending the world. It's bending yourself into a weapon sharper than any circumstance. Modern psychology backs this principle fiercely. Studies in emotional intelligence show that individuals who manage emotional reactivity have higher rates of influence, leadership success, and trustworthiness. Daniel Goleman, the pioneer of emotional intelligence research, found that self-regulation is the foundation of effective influence. The man who controls his inner world doesn't just survive chaos, he engineers the outcome while others are busy reacting. Here's the strategy. First, anticipate emotional pressure. When entering any critical situation, negotiation, confrontation, public debate, expect that emotions will run high. Prepare not to resist them, but to surf them. Like a surfer using the ocean's rage to move forward, not drown. Second, become a mirror. When they raise their voice, you lower yours. When they escalate, you decelerate. Your calm becomes the psychological contrast that makes their storm look foolish, childish, unstable. Third, ask questions instead of arguing. Emotion thrives on resistance. Starve it. When attacked, instead of defending, ask, "Why do you feel so strongly about this?" This forces emotional players to expose their reasoning, often revealing contradictions and weak points in their logic. Fourth, control your breathing. Tactical breathing. Inhale slowly for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 4, keeps your nervous system grounded while others burn out theirs. Picture it like this. You are a dam facing a raging river. The river screams, thrashes, tries its way past you, but you do not crumble. You absorb, you redirect, you remain immovable. The river exhausts itself, the dam remains. Daily application. Today, when you feel irritated, slighted, baited, pause. Count to 3 silently. Smile, not out of arrogance, but out of mastery. Then decide, will responding serve me or expose me? Choose clarity over impulse every single time. Write this somewhere visible. Let them drown in their own waves. I remain the shore. You don't dominate through force. You dominate by letting others waste their power while you conserve yours. You don't need to argue. You don't need to defend. You need to stay silent long enough for them to reveal their entire hand. Because the man who explodes may win the moment, but the man who stays still wins the war. And once they have spent their emotions recklessly against you, there is nothing left for them to fight with. Only silence and your unbreakable presence. Number 6, exploit ambiguity to amplify your power. When people cannot read you, they cannot predict you. When they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. In every room, in every conflict, in every negotiation, the man who remains a mystery becomes the man they fear to cross. Clarity is comfortable. Certainty is manageable. Ambiguity terrifies. Because when they don't know your limits, your intentions, or your capabilities, their minds create enemies far worse than you could ever be. Think of it like walking through dense fog. You don't fear what you see. You fear what you imagine is hidden. That imagination, untethered, panicked, raw, is your ally. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, because all men can see a thing, but few can understand it." And the Stoics, too, lived this principle. Epictetus taught, "It is better to be silent than to speak in ignorance." The wise man does not reveal his hand prematurely. He lets others twist themselves into knots trying to decipher shadows. Jake, 36, from Philadelphia, learned this at a pivotal moment in his political career. Early on, he tried to explain every policy, every move, every decision, believing that transparency would build trust. It did the opposite. His enemies found patterns, found weaknesses, used his openness against him. His turning point came when he switched tactics. Fewer interviews, tighter statements, calm refusal to comment on speculation. His silence didn't make him look weak, it made him look formidable. The less they knew, the more they speculated. The more they speculated, the more they fractured. While his rivals were busy reacting to phantoms, Jake moved quietly, decisively, unchallenged. Psychologists call this information asymmetry, the strategic advantage that occurs when you hold more information than your opponent. In warfare, it's standard practice. In business, it's the foundation of negotiation. In personal power, it is an untouchable shield. Here's how to weaponize ambiguity. First, speak carefully. Answer questions without answering fully. Offer principles, not detailed plans. When asked for opinions, respond with a question. Deflect without defensiveness. Second, reveal less about your emotions. When you show pleasure, they can manipulate it. When you show anger, they can provoke it. Stay neutral. Let them wonder if their actions have touched you. Let them drown in the uncertainty. Third, protect your personal life fiercely. Who you associate with, where you spend your time, what you plan next. Keep it layered in fog. Let only a trusted handful glimpse the real map. Fourth, vary your behavior. Predictability is vulnerability. Change your routines subtly. Speak less at some meetings, more at others. Attend occasionally, withdraw strategically. Never let them plot your rhythm. Imagine yourself as a black mirror. You show others only their own projections, never your true face. They approach hoping to read you and find only their fears reflected back at them. They will think twice before moving against a man they cannot categorize, cannot measure, cannot predict. Apply it today. In your next conversation, resist the urge to fill silence. Let your answers be deliberate but incomplete. Let curiosity rise like smoke. Notice who leans forward, who grows uneasy, who searches your face for clues that do not exist. Congratulations, you are no longer just participating in the game, you are shaping it. Write this where you can see it. The less they see, the more they fear. You don't need to shout your strength. You don't need to advertise your victories. You need only remain unreadable long enough for their imagination to destroy their certainty. Because in the end, it's not the strongest man who wins. It's the man who turns every glance his way into a riddle they are too afraid to solve. And when their fear speaks louder than your silence, you have already won. Number 7, end completely. Leave no door open for return. Half measures breed full disasters. In war and business and life, the greatest mistake is thinking mercy will save you from vengeance. It won't. When you leave an enemy wounded but breathing, you do not end the conflict, you delay it. You give them time to recover, to rebuild, to hate you in silence. When you must strike so completely that return is not an option. You must erase, not merely defeat. A battle only truly ends when one side has no resources left to fight, no morale left to hope, no allies left to call upon. Anything less is an invitation for future betrayal. A future conflict that will come back sharper, angrier, more desperate than before. Darren, 43 from Atlanta, learned this too late. After leading a corporate buyout, he chose to keep some of the displaced executives on board, believing loyalty could be bought with generous contracts and kind words. They smiled, they thanked him. And 6 months later, they orchestrated a boardroom coup that stripped Darren of his power, leaving him a figurehead in a company he once ruled. He gave them survival, and they used it to sharpen the knife he had left in their hands. The Stoics understood that peace is not maintained by good intentions. It is maintained by clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That doesn't mean tolerating unfinished battles. It means finishing them without becoming cruel, through precision, not savagery. End in such a way that continuation is impossible, not just unlikely. Modern psychology backs this ruthlessness. Research in conflict resolution shows that ambiguous endings, where parties are left partially satisfied but not fully cut off, tend to generate lingering resentment and renewed conflict cycles. It's cleaner, paradoxically more humane, to finish disputes absolutely, removing the emotional oxygen needed to reignite the fire. How do you apply this principle? First, understand when negotiation is over. When it is clear that coexistence is a fantasy, when trust is irreparably broken, stop bargaining. Mercy offered too late becomes stupidity. Second, remove access completely. Cut communication channels. Sever influence lines. Don't allow one more conversation, one more chance. That door will reopen to chaos. Third, dismantle support structures around them. If someone posed a threat once, they will do so again if given opportunity. Remove the opportunity. Fourth, vanish with finality. No public gloating, no announcements, no second acts. True ending is quiet and irreversible. Picture a great wall falling, not cracked, not leaning, fallen flat across the earth. No stones left standing to be reassembled. No safe passage left to climb over. No chance for a last stand. Here's a daily application. The next time you end a toxic relationship, a bad deal, or a poisonous alliance, do not pause at the door. Do not entertain their promises of change, their pleas for understanding. Step out. Close the door, lock it. Throw the key into the ocean of your past. You owe nothing to the battlefield you've already conquered. Write this down where you cannot miss it. Mercy without finality is weakness in disguise. You don't owe unfinished enemies a second chance to sharpen their swords. You owe yourself peace that doesn't have to look over its shoulder. When you end something, end it like the Stoics ended weakness. Swiftly, decisively, without regret. Because the man who leaves no door open for the past owns the future without fear. Conclusion. The world does not belong to those who shout the loudest or to those who plead for fairness. It belongs to the ones who move like shadows, who strike without warning, who vanish without a trace of weakness. It belongs to the men who understand that dominance is not granted by noise. It is claimed by precision, patience, and cold, deliberate finality. Victory is not about humiliation. It is about leaving nothing behind that can rise again. It is about shaping reality so completely that your rivals do not even realize they've lost until it is far too late to resist. It is about standing so firmly in your silence, in your presence, in your calculated moves, that by the time the dust settles, there are no questions left unanswered, because there is no one left to ask them. The Stoics taught this. They didn't seek endless battles or loud triumphs. They sought closure, the kind that cannot be undone, the kind that cuts cleaner than any sword. They understood that to master others, you must first master the urge to explain, to argue, to delay. Machiavelli sharpened that lesson. If you must strike, strike to end, not to wound. You do not leave enemies half defeated. You do not let battles simmer in the background of your life. You finish what you start, with the clarity of a surgeon, not the rage of a brawler. Because every unfinished war is a chain that will one day pull you back into blood and fire you thought you had escaped. So what will you choose? Will you keep believing that being nice is the same as being wise? Will you keep thinking that mercy without boundaries will buy you loyalty? Or will you finally step into the truth, the sharp, clear, brutal truth, that real dominance demands real endings? The choice is yours. But know this: a man who leaves his battles unfinished never truly leaves the battlefield. If this message struck something inside you, if it reminded you of a moment you should have ended clean, a situation you should have closed but hesitated, then it's time to change how you move from now on. Like this video, subscribe to Victory Stoic if you're ready to stop being a pawn and start becoming the man who shapes the game itself. Drop your voice in the comments with the battle cry, "No loose ends." Or share your story. A time you ended something cleanly, or a time you left the door cracked open and paid the price. Thank you for standing strong with us. Thank you for sharpening your mind when the world begs for your surrender. And remember, those who finish with clarity never have to fight the same war twice. Move sharply, end completely, and leave no piece of yourself behind on battlefields you were born to outgrow.